statements issued by hosts, co-hosts, guests, and anyone else appearing on the show do not reflect the stance of the College of New Jersey or the NJDOE OSE. Please use your professional judgment when implementing strategies and resources within your practice.
Switches and apps, little adjustments, big impact. The AT Center presents AT Talks, where every voice...
Welcome back to AT Talks. This is part one of our multi-part deep dive into Title II compliance and digital accessibility with Janet DeSenzo. In this episode, we're setting the stage, running through our rapid-fire rounds, and discussing underrated accessibility features. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss part 2 and part 3 coming soon, where we cover the full WCAG standards, practical compliance, and our game segment. Back to AT Talks. We are the podcast for the Assistive Technology Center at TCNJ, and we're here to inform, educate, and empower listeners about assistive technology. I'm your host, Brian Kenyon, owner of Kenyon Learning Consulting.
And I'm Vanessa Lombardo. I'm the project director for the AT Center here at TCNJ.
And I'm Madison Bronstein. I'm a speech-language pathologist and ATP with the center.
Today, we are tackling a topic that should be on every educator and administrator's mind right now. It's that Title II compliance. There are new updates to the ADA regarding web content, mobile apps, and it's coming pretty quickly. So the pressure is on to make all of our digital materials accessible. To help us navigate this with practical strategies, we are joined by Janet DeSenzo.
And Janet is the technology coordinator and assistive technology specialist for the CTC Academy. She has been in the industry since 2003 and has worn many, many hats over all those years, from tech coach to business owner, and all, of course, with the ultimate goal of helping students to reach their potential. So, Janet, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm so happy to be here. It's an important topic to be talking about.
Cool. Before we dive into the nuts and bolts of our podcast, we like to do a fit check, a visual description for our listeners. So I'll go first. I'm a white man. I have a buzz cut and a beard. Right now I'm wearing a green shirt and I have brown khakis and gray tennis shoes on.
Excellent. And I'll go next. This is Vanessa. So I am a middle-aged white woman. I have glasses and brown hair. And today I'm wearing a black shirt.
And I'm Madison. I am a young white woman. I have long blonde hair. I am wearing silver over-the-ear headphones, and I also have a black shirt on.
And this is Janet, and I have a short undercut haircut, big giant glasses on, and I'm a white 50-ish woman with my favorite TCNJ sweatshirt on.
Perfect.
Excellent.
I love it. All right. So we like to do a chance to get to know you better. We're going to do some rounds of rapid fire questions. The first ones are going to be fun and personal. The second ones are going to have an AT focus. So Vanessa, why don't you start us off?
Sure. All right, Janet, are you a morning person or a night owl?
Definitely night owl. There's not enough coffee in the world for me to have a morning.
I agree. My son and I, we will stay up until all hours of the night. He's only 10, but like if I let him stay up, we'll be up till midnight or later, even on a school night.
I am also a night owl, for sure.
Oh, man, I'm the odd one out. I am the early bird. I need to go to bed early.
All right, next question. Do you prefer a physical book, an audiobook, or an ebook?
I like all of the above. I prefer ebooks. I read a lot of historical fiction, so sometimes there's terms that I'm not familiar with, and I really like the ability to look up that information when I'm using like an ebook, like a Kindle app. But I do like that feel of paper when I'm reading. You know, there's something about turning pages and feeling like you're getting through a book. So all of the above.
I totally agree. I actually just recently got myself a Kindle. And one thing it's really great for is reading in bed because, you know, you can dim the light and not have that that detachable book light that's insanely bright that wakes up other people. But yeah, thank you.
Excellent. All right, Janet, are you a Windows person or a Mac person?
Well, I have to use both at work, but I definitely prefer Windows. I'm a Windows person.
Is there any reason you prefer Windows over Mac?
Way back when computers were just starting to come out, I was definitely an Apple person. I'm going to date myself, but some of us used an Apple IIc. That was my first computer. And then there was the Apple GS, and then somehow I started to, study Fortran and Basic, and I
Oh,
jumped
wow.
over to Windows and just got stuck there. Um, and that's where I've been ever since.
So you code as well?
I used to. I don't code now. That's kind of where I started. And then I jumped into education and I left it where it was. So haven't done it since. I have an
Okay.
understanding of what it is, but I don't code anymore now.
Okay. That's cool. For our listeners, Fortran and Fortran and Basic
Fortran.
are both coding languages. They're older coding languages too. That's not to, but I think like our um, pension system, the New Jersey state pension system is like run under Fortran or something like that.
Hope not.
Fun fact. All
Uh,
right. Cake or pie?
Pie all the way.
Okay. And
favorite
what's
flavor?
your
Yeah.
Yep, that's just what
Sorry.
I was gonna ask. That's okay.
I'm just so typical, and I just love apple pie
Mhm.
with or without ice cream.
Mm,
Good.
nice.
Board games or video games?
I love board games. I like the interactiveness of it. You have to be with somebody to play a board game. Video games is just a little bit impersonal.
Mhm.
So I'd rather have like a family board game night where we're getting loud and we're having fun and we're laughing a lot together. So
Do
Do you
you
have
have any? Yeah, there you go. You say
Do
it,
you have a
Madison.
favorite board game?
we used to play Life a lot, the game of life, and I just, you can't really team up on anybody with Life, but you can kinda joke and reflect as you're going through the game, so that's probably my
Yes.
favorite.
Yes.
Awesome. What is your favorite app on your phone that is not work related?
I think that would have to be my Fitbit app. That's I've always worn a Fitbit watch, and I think that's probably the one that I'm on the most. There's some great, workouts for free. There's, breathing exercises when you need to take a minute in life, so that's probably my go-to.
Cool. If you could instantly learn one new skill, what would it be right now?
Drumming.
Yeah,
Mm.
Always wanted to play the drums.
me too. That's cool.
And then, last question for our fun kind of round. If you could travel, where is the next place that you would want to go?
I thought about this when you guys threw this out there, and I was like, there's so many places I wanna see, but there's so many places in the United States that I've never been, and I've never actually been to the Grand Canyon. That's kind of like, gotta do
Mm.
that. I've flown over it, it looks like a big giant hole in the earth, and I've always wanted to see it up close, maybe do it on a donkey or a motorcycle or something like that, like, just be in it, and be surrounded by it.
I bet a motorcycle would be cool. Not that a
Oh
donkey
yeah,
wouldn't be cool, but
Mhm.
yeah. I've never been.
Cool.
I've never been. That's funny. The farthest west I've ever been is Ohio. How about you, Janet?
I've been out to Idaho, and I remember looking at the mountains going, "These are mountains."
Yeah.
In New Jersey, we think we have mountains, but they're just not mountains. They're
No.
kind
No.
of mountains, but then you go
Yes.
out west and you're like, "Wow, yes,
Right.
Yeah.
these are
yep,
mountains." So,
Yeah.
for
yeah.
sure. All right. Thank you for those fun rapid fire questions. We're going to jump into round two of our rapid fire questions with more of an AT focus. So we're going to start off. Vanessa, you want to start us off?
Sure. What do you think is the most underrated accessibility feature?
Underrated. I had to think about this a lot, and I think that underrated for me is something we take for granted a lot, especially since we've been using cell phones so much. And I think that the answer that I came to is voice recognition. Because those of us who've been in the AT field for a long time, remember when voice recognition came out, like
Mhm.
20, 30 years ago, and it involved training your voice for 40 minutes to an hour. And even then, it wasn't all that accurate. And now we just use it for everything. When we shoot off a text on the phone, or if I have 5 minutes to put together a quick email and I'm in my Gmail, I'm going to turn on my voice recognition. So I think that when I think of underrated, like if somebody were to say you could never use voice recognition again, I think, oh my gosh, my whole world would change. Um,
Mhm.
but it's something that I take for granted now because we just use it so much. I use it for everything.
Do you have any good voice recognition apps for people with atypical speech?
That's a good question. I remember reading in the Quiet Listserv, for those of you who've never heard of the Quiet Listserv, it's quality indicators for assistive tech. This was a discussion a little while back, and there was one that came out, but I just can't remember the name
Is
of
it
it right
Voice
now.
It?
It may be Voice It. Um,
They have a number of different features for people with atypical speech.
yeah, I guess that is the one that came up. And there's all different settings that you can change on it. And even though, if you have non-typical speech, you do have to train it if I remember, but it's not
Mhm.
like the old
Yes.
times when we had to do hours and hours of training to get it to be somewhat accurate.
Mhm.
Madison actually had shared that one with me, and I tried it with a student, and when we first did it, he had to do 50 phrases and it picked it up pretty like, that took us, like, 3 minutes. It really was not long. But then soon after, I got something out about it that said they had moved it down to, like, a 10-second, just because of what they can do with AI, basically, like a 10-second phrase or 10-second output, basically, or input, I should say.
Yeah, with those large language models, just utilizing all that data to be able to make it work.
Yeah. Also
Amazing.
remember at ATIA last year, they were going over a new one on Android phones. Um,
Yes.
I don't know if it was Project Relay. I'm trying to remember what
Mm.
the
It's
name of
through
it
Goo
was.
it's th I read that one I've looked at that one too. I don't have any Android devices, but it's directly through Google, and you can only do it on Android devices, and it's for individuals with non-typical atypical speech. Yes, I can't remember what that one's called either.
Yeah, I think it was through Project Relate. I think it was something they were testing, and I am team Android, so I did feel the need to go in and load all those Google tools up and test them out, and I was shocked. Um, they had somebody there testing it in front of the, presentation, panel, and it was really, really accurate. So even if you had an accent, if you were not a non-English native English speaker, or a non-traditional speaker, it was amazingly accurate. I was shocked.
I think it's Project Euphonia.
Ah,
They have to name it something similar, so it's confusing.
yeah, yeah. Okay, good one.
Cool. Alright.
Okay.
What what is one book or website you recommend to everyone in this field?
One of the websites I go back to all the time is Cast. The Cast website just has so many resources on it, from UDL to AIM. When I'm looking for ideas for, accessible materials and, finding resources, there's just so many resources on that website. There's small bits of podcast, which is where I first learned about the new Title II changes was on the CAST website. I listened to a a short webinar that they had talked about this when it first came out, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I had to learn more." So, yeah, CAST has gotta be one of my favorite sites.
Cool.
Awesome. Who is your professional hero or inspiration?
I went back and forth on this. There's 2 people that I really look up to. My number 1 has gotta be Joy Zabala. Um, when I was first getting into the AT field, I really didn't know anyone or anything, and I remember ending up at a dinner with her, sitting at the table with Joy Zabala, and at the time, I had no idea who anybody was, and I just thought, "Wow, this woman is so inspirational, and so knowledgeable and so inspiring." Um, she's just she was really an amazing woman, and we were lucky to have her in our industry. Um, Currently, like one of my favorite people to listen to and get ideas from is Chris Begage. If any of you know him from Loudoun County, he's just, he's got great ideas. He's got great energy, and he's one of those people where you could just bounce off ideas from. And one of his books about assistive technology was just written in a way that's just so non-threatening and easy to read, and um, he's just a really easy person to listen to and so knowledgeable. So those are my two favorite AT people.
Those are some
Cool.
good ones.
Complete this sentence. Accessibility is.
For some, the difference between living and existing.
Ooh.
Mm.
I love that distinction. I just want to capitalize on that because, especially with students with disabilities, I think sometimes we get in this rut of the living or just, or rather, the just existing. Like they're doing the test, they're making it through, they're going from grade to grade. But with assistive technology and just in general, we really want students to have very high quality of life. We want them to do things that they're passionate about. And that is the living part and how
Are they
AT.
participating?
Right,
Yeah.
to bridge that gap and obviously having things accessible in terms of participation. So I really, really love that. I literally had a conversation with someone this morning around that kind of idea of the living versus just existing. So thank you, Janet, for saying that because I think that really resonates.
Yeah, I think, if you want to participate in life, you have to be able to access the information that you need.
Mhm.
Even if you're, let's say that what I keep going back to is thinking if I had a vision impairment, a visual impairment, and I needed to access and travel on a bus system, on a public trans system, like how often do you need to check a schedule? How often do you need to see on the bus sign where that bus is going? You know, so do you just sit home and just exist, or do you find those accessible sites and find a way to navigate where you need to go? And that's living, you know? So that's kind of, I think, if without accessibility, you can't do that. You can't really move successfully through life and have aspirations and find your way.
No, absolutely. Last question. What is one thing you wish general education teachers knew about assistive technology?
So one of the things, in the past, one of the many things that I've done in life is teach both undergraduate and graduate courses about special ed and assistive tech. And I remember there were students in the class one day who were like, "Well, I'm regular ed and I just had to take this class." And my answer to them was there's no such thing as regular ed. And I think that's what a lot of teachers need to understand. Um, there's just no such thing as regular ed anymore. You may think you're only going to teach regular ed, but chances are in your career, you're going to have an inclusion class, or you're going to have students that have accommodations in your class, whether they have an IEP, whether they have a 504, whether they're gifted and talented, they're going to have some type of special learning need. And you need to have the tools in order to reach those students. Um, so I think that it behooves general ed teachers, if we want to call them general ed teachers, and I'm one of them, to learn about AT because it's really hard. Well, I always think about builders, right? You can build a house with hammers and saws, but it's a lot easier to use power tools, right?
Mhm.
So that's kind of how I think about assistive tech. If you have the right tools, especially in a regular ed classroom, quote unquote regular ed, assistive tech is going to make the lives of those students much more comfortable in your regular ed classroom.
For sure.
Yeah, I was a regular ed teacher before I came to the assistive technology field, and I wish I had a little more I think I would have deep dived into it in terms of if I did know about it when I was in my undergrad learning about teaching. but I really didn't know much about assistive technology until really 7 years ago, 7 years ago. So I wish I knew more because I probably could have helped more students because I was always so tech focused in my classes and tried new things with my students. And yeah. Cool. All right. So that's a really good, the accessibility is the difference between living and I keep going back to this. So thank you for all of that. And the giving us some different information and cast and Chris Bagage and Joy Zabala. Yes. A lot of people should know her, but if you don't, it's definitely someone you should check out. And that's a wrap on another episode of AT Talks. A huge thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in. We love making this podcast and building this community with all of you. Remember, the conversation doesn't end here. The team at the Assistive Technology Center at TCNJ is dedicated to supporting educators across New Jersey. If you were inspired by today's discussion and want to bring high-quality, free professional development to your district, Vanessa and Madison are ready to help. To learn how you can partner with the center and build capacity in your school, head over to our website. You can find all the information you need at atcenter.tcnj.edu. And while you're there, we want to hear from you. Visit the podcast tab. There you can send us a question through our Google form, or even better, leave us a voice message on SpeakPipe for us to play live on the show. Be sure to follow us on social media to stay up to date on all our latest events and resources. You can find us on Instagram and YouTube with the handle @ATCenterTCNJ. And don't forget to subscribe to AT Talks on whatever platform you're listening on right now so you never miss an episode. On behalf of Vanessa, Madison, and myself, Brian, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Experts and users side by side, sharing what really works. The AT Center presents AT Talks, fueling student success.